How's it going? Ron here, and we have our first book review here, The Way to Wealth by Benjamin Franklin. This book is a really, really good book, and I highly recommend everyone to read it. But fortunately, I read it for you, so you'll get the summary straight from me. And what I did here was I took these little post-its, and for every page or quote that's important, I put a post-it on it. So you're going to be getting pretty much just the golden nuggets of the book in roughly 20 minutes. Stories from the book, quotes from the book, and just examples in Benjamin Franklin's life on how he pretty much became one of the richest people of all the time. So we're going to start with just the intro and like a little bit of background about who he is. He has a saying that you have to do well by doing good. And he says here, this is an intro by Walter Isaacson, the guy who helped publish this book. Helping others is part of a virtuous cycle. It makes you more valuable to your community, helps you to serve both your neighbors and your God, and also rebounds to your personal credit. To pour forth benefits for the common good was divine. So pretty much he's saying that create businesses that actually help people, and that's a great way to prosper for yourself. And obviously Benjamin Franklin was a very wealthy individual even back then in the 1700s. So this applies throughout any time. You must do well by doing good and by helping others succeed in whatever your business or even yourself whatever you want to do. Helping others succeed will help you succeed as well. So just a little bit of background about him. He ran away from Boston to Philly, and he had no money. You know, this guy was self-made, and pretty much just through a printing business, he franchised a printing business, and from that printing business made a lot of money. I mean, this guy was a famous guy. And there's little tips in the intro that they give. Stuff like if you are into Jim Rohn, they talk about you are the average of the 5 friends you surround yourself with, the 5 people you surround yourself with. And if you read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, he talks about how a mastermind is important for you to go on your way to, let's just say, riches in this example. Benjamin Franklin, he made a group called the Junto. And what they did was, it was a bunch of people in the city. In this one specifically, it was aspiring shopkeepers and artisans. And from there, he laid out a guide, and they met up every week, and they talked about stuff. And I made a quote, I circled the quote on what they talked about. And in the book it says, what new story have you lately heard agreeable for telling in conversations? So what have you heard that was pretty good recently? Hath any citizen in your knowledge failed in his business lately, and what have you heard of the cause? So do you know anybody who pretty much failed in their business endeavor recently? Have you lately heard of any citizens thriving well, and by what means? So have you ever heard anyone who's doing really well in business right now, and how are they doing so? Have you lately heard how any present rich man here or elsewhere got his estate? Did you hear about anyone who, watched their story from rags to riches, and how did they do that? Do you know of any fellow citizen who has lately done a worthy action deserving praise and imitation? Do you know anyone who, did anything that's just worth talking about? Someone who really did something amazing and too hard to ignore recently? Is there any man whose friendship you want, and our club can do anything to help you get there? And how do you want that to happen? So pretty much strategically, no man is an island. You need people to get by. Masterminds help. Even Benjamin Franklin himself had a mastermind, like Napoleon Hill says, that they met up frequently, and they talked about things that are going good for other people, things that are going bad for other people, and ways that they can each other network with other people to help their own businesses and help their own aspirations. So that's pretty much the intro of the book. It's just quick things like that. And after the intro, Benjamin Franklin, in the book, they have some main chapters of the book that they discuss different topics. So what I did was I put a post-it on each one, and the first one was planning. You will never live long enough to learn everything that you need to know to succeed in life. And that's true. That's why they say you have to be humble. Try to learn from other people as much as you can. That's why I'm a big advocate for reading books. You can't learn on your own through your own mistakes and your own trials and tribulations. It's best to learn from other people. Like Richard Dawkins says, simulation is how you get ahead. Learning from other people's mistakes. That's what Warren Buffett says too. And Benjamin Franklin's saying the same thing. You will never live long enough to learn that everything you need to know to succeed in life. So it is crucial to learn from others while understanding that your own reasoning must help you understand what to do with what you learn from them. Okay, it is necessary to take your life in your own hands and take responsibility for your actions, because no one cares about you more than you do. Okay, so Benjamin Franklin's pretty much saying that your life is in your own hands, and that's something called an internal locus of control. Look up internal locus of control if you don't know about it, and external locus of control. Most successful people have an internal locus of control, which means that they believe that their own life is 100% their own responsibility, and they have the power to change that. So Benjamin Franklin is saying that here, learn from other people, don't be an idiot, but at the same time understand that you have your own control of your own life. Then he has some quotes here in planning still. He who lives on hope will die fasting, so diligence is the mother of good luck. He's saying that you can wish for a better tomorrow, but most likely the person working towards a better tomorrow is the person most likely going to get it. Employ that time well if thou meanest to gain pleasure. Have you something to do tomorrow, do it today. Lost time is never found again. So if you have something to do tomorrow, just do it today, because you don't know what's going to come tomorrow. You can't foresee the future, so it makes more sense to just trust the present and do everything you can in your own power today. Many without labor would live by their own weights, but they won't break for stock. Industry need not wish. And those are some pretty good quotes. And then again, what can be done with care, perform today. Dangers unthought of will tend delay. Your distant prospects all precarious care, and fortune is as fickle as she's fair. Having been poor is no shame, but being ashamed of it is. So pretty much that internal locus of control again. Bill Gates has a similar quote to that. If you're born poor, it's not your fault, but if you die poor, it is. He's saying the same thing. It's in your control. Don't be ashamed of being, someone of low income, but being ashamed that you are in that state is not really a good way to look at things. So, I found that pretty interesting. That's in planning. The next chapter is on working. And he says, sloth like rust consumes faster than labor wears, while the used key is almost bright. And I took that as, if a used key is almost bright, which means that you're utilizing your own efforts, your own energy towards getting things done, so that way you're going to be right, because you're always moving towards a better thing. Newton's first law, I believe, whatever's in motion stays in motion. That's momentum. So he's saying that, if you're sitting like a couch potato, sloth like rust consumes faster than labor wears, so you're going to be building bad momentum. But if you're continually working towards something, like let's say reading the 50 pages a day, you're going to be, the use key is almost bright, right? He that hath a calling and office of profit and honor, early to bed and early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. This means that pretty much early to bed, early to rise, everyone has a different way of working. Some people work late at night and they're better off, and some people work early in the morning and they're better off. Early to bed, early to rise, that means this person is usually focused. He's pretty much saying that being focused with your time, whether early in the morning you're more productive or early at night, is the best way to go. And I think he was an early bird himself. I think he used to wake up at I'm not sure if it was him or someone else, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and start doing his work. Depends. You want to be doing your work when other people are sleeping, because that's when you're most productive, no interruptions. So that's what pretty much he's saying. Laziness travels so slow that poverty soon overtakes him. At the working man's house, hunger looks in but does not enter. If we are industrious, we shall never starve. So you can tell he was an advocate for working hard, okay? At the working man's house, hunger never looks in. He's saying that as long as you're working hard at something, it's very hard to not be reimbursed for it in terms of a financial viewpoint. So work hard. Let's see what else he says. The working chapter, there wasn't too much stuff in it. He talks more about time, credit, and money. Remember that credit is money. If a man lets his money lie in the hands after it's due, he gives me the interest and I can take the time. So he's saying, make good use of money and time, and understand that. And Remember that money is of a prolific generating nature. Money can beget money, and its offspring can beget more. 5 shillings, 6, turn 7, turn 3 pence, and so on till 100 pound. The more of it, the more I make. Okay, so money begets money, and he was an advocate of saying that if you're an investor and you have a lot of money and you put it towards the right things, it will create more and more and more and more money with less work exponentially. So, I found that interesting. What else did he say here? Oh, this one was a great one in working. He talks about credit and debt. Okay, and I'm going to just read it word for word because this is the best, one of the best pieces I found in the book here. Remember this saying, that the good paymaster is lord of another man's purse. He that is known to pay punctually and exactly to the time he promises may at any time and on any occasion raise all the money his friends can spare. This is sometimes of great use. Therefore, never keep borrowed money an hour beyond the time you promised, lest the disappointment will shut up your friend's purse forever. Okay, so if you pay on time, people will trust you more and more again. They have certainty in your actions and they believe you. But if you don't pay on time, it's going to be harder to borrow money again because you just lost all the trust. Everything becomes down to trust. The most trifling actions that affects a man's credit are to be regarded. The sound of your hammer at 5 in the morning or 9 at night, heard by a creditor, makes him easy 6 months longer. But if he sees you at a billiard table, hears your voice in a tavern when you should be at work, he sends for his money the next day. If you're wearing better clothes than him or greater expense in anything that he can't afford, it shocks his pride, and they pretty much hate that. So if you owe someone money, and whether it's a creditor or someone you know personally, and they see you, working hard every single day to get things done, they're not going to be as on you as they would if they seen you partying and stuff. And if you're wearing better stuff than them and you're partying and all that and you owe them money, it's just a contradiction, and they're going to ask for that money right away. So he's a big advocator in trust, and when it comes to money, be mindful of that. The sound of the hammer makes them sleep at night, but if they see you partying or hear you at a bar, they're going to be a little bit upset. Let's see. He talks about frugality and saving. Benjamin Franklin was a big advocate in saving. Okay? Let's see. Saving is the key to accumulate wealth. It is important to realize the orientation of wealth, saving, and to realize that saving money is not a luxury but a necessity of life and the most basic economic activity. Okay? And he was a guy that used to say, saving is just as good as getting money, right? If you save $10, it's like you got $10. So he's a big advocate on saving. We know that now. God helps those that helps themselves. Fly pleasures and they will follow you. At a great pennyworth, pause a while. Okay, so we're still in saving right now. There are 3 faithful friends, an old wife, an old dog, and ready money. Right? So what is he saying by that? Dogs are forever loyal. Your wife is forever loyal to you, depending on your relationship, but also ready money too. Because I have another book here, Gene Simmons' Sex, Money, Kiss. He talks about using money in the right way. And I actually have a friend on Facebook. His name's Carlos. He's a copywriter. This guy's making a ton of money, 6 figures, close to 7 figures now. And he talked about a post that really hit me home. And he talked about how I think his sister was sick, and he brought her to the hospital, and he was saying how because he worked so hard, he was able to bring her to the hospital because he had money. If he didn't have money, it'd be hard for him to do that. So there's one side of money, which is, buy Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Maseratis and stuff. But there's another side of money, which is using it for, stuff like helping your family in sickness and medical bills and stuff like that. So Benjamin Franklin here is saying that ready money, if you save money, when things come, that's going to be your best friend. Using money the right way when emergencies happen, and having an emergency. Even if you read stuff like Dave Ramsey, Total Money Makeover, he talks about having an emergency account of $1,000 minimum. So when your car breaks down, something happens, etc., you have that ready money available. So even back in the 1700s, Benjamin Franklin knew this. So great piece of advice here. A penny saved is a penny earned. A man may, if he knows not know how to save as he gets, keeps his nose to the grindstone. So if you don't know how to save money, you're going to be working hard forever. That's pretty much what he's saying, because you don't have money to invest, you don't have money to do other things. So you need to know that saving money is important, or you're going to keep working hardcore, buying things you don't need and having to sell them, and you're going to be stuck in a cycle of just a mess. When the well is dry, they know the worth of water. So you're not going to know how important saving really is until you don't got any money. So it's the same thing with here. He's saying when there's no water, that's when you'll know the worth of it, right? So yeah, he pretty much has a little bit more quotes about that, but that pretty much sums it up. He has some notes on investing, and he was a big investor. This guy was a huge investor. Everyone knows that. He talks about how after getting the first 100 pound is more easier to get the second. Money itself is prolific in nature. So once you start getting more money, the momentum will build, and it will beget itself. The last thing on investing, he says, a penny saved is a penny got. On others, he that buys what he has no need of will soon be forced to sell his necessaries on others. So you have two options. You have $100. You can either save, half of it and live off the other half for that day, or you could spend it on, the new pairs of shoes you wanted. Benjamin Franklin's saying pretty much that if you buy those new shoes, chances are you're going to have to sell those shoes later to pay for something more important, or you're going to have to sell something really important to make up for that payment of those shoes. So if you buy things you don't need, you're going to have to end up selling them later on. And I've seen that to be true, especially in my own life. So it's funny how he says that. There's only a couple pieces left here. I'm not sure how I'm good on time, but pretty much the next chapter, owning. He talks about how you must own things, own assets to make more money. What I liked here was in owning, he talks about business a lot. And he says the eye of a master will do more than both of his hands. So he's saying that there's two ways to do things. There's being hands-on and continually watching it. And I like this because in Sam Walton's book, Made in America, he talks about how the best form of management in running a company is the over-the-shoulder technique. You're always looking at your employees and just making sure they're all right. You're not micromanaging them. Hey, you're doing this. Hey, you're doing that. You're not hands-on, but you're watching them and they know you're watching them. Okay? And this works with not only just in terms of business, but in like everything. Like, for example, monitoring your account. I've found that people who don't check their account every single morning, you don't have to be in business, just in general, you're most likely going to get more overdraft fees. And that's because you're not watching your account, you're not watching those little expenses. You got Spotify on your account, and you think it's $10, or you think it's $5, and after 6 months later, you finally check your account, and Spotify has been charging you, $10 instead of $5 for 6 months, even though the promotion said $5. So, having the eye of the master, being able to watch and just see from afar and just always look every single day, whether on your employees, checking in on them, or checking in on your own account, or checking in on, anything. If you have a car and, just checking on the engine real quick, seeing how that is, the eye of the master will do more than both hands. So just be mindful of things and always watch from afar. But don't be too in micromanaging and too involved. You know what I mean? Just watch from afar. So I like that. Drive thy business, let not it drive thee. And I like that because I read a book called E-Myth Revisited. And Michael Gerber talks about the same thing, how, you need to drive the business itself, don't let it drive you. It's the same thing with everything. If you have work, if you work for a job, don't let the job take care of your life. The job isn't supposed to be your life. You're supposed to just, drive the job. So have everything organized at your job, but don't let your job interfere with your life. Like, have a time and a place for everything, When you're at home, be at home. When you're at work, be at work. I'd like that. So for owning, there's not too much after that. Let's see. He talks about generosity here, how a man is sometimes more generous when he has but a little money than he who has plenty, perhaps through fear of being thought to have little. So he's making a distinction here that people who don't really have too much money are the ones who think they should be giving a lot more, but the people who have a lot don't really care what people think about them in terms of how much they give. They give for their own reasons. So it's kind of a good distinction between how much someone who's, of lesser income thinks more like of other people thinking about them, when in reality, no one's really thinking about them. And how you should live, it should be for you itself. It's kind of a paradigm here, but I found it interesting how he said that. He calls it generosity, but here, the next chapter is protecting. And Ben Franklin talks about how you need to have a plan for protecting your money. And nowadays it's called insurance. But he just talks about how important it is to protect everything that you own. It's one thing to get everything, but it's another thing to protect everything. Protect your riches, for example, since the book's called Way to Wealth. Okay, so he talks here about a story of, he calls it the hat trick, and I like this story. Franklin once called on a rich Quaker friend who lived all by himself in an enormous house. As Franklin walked through the rooms of the mansion, he said, "Sir, why do you go to the cost of keeping up this immense house when you just need a fraction of the space?" The rich man replied, "I have means." Upon entering the dining room, Franklin saw a table that could sit 25 people. He asked, "Why such a large table?" The wealthy man again answered, "I have the means." "In that case," said Franklin, taking the hat from the Quaker's head, "why don't you have a hat big enough for 25 people? You have the means." So he's saying, you got to live below your means. Just because you have the means for a big house doesn't mean you should buy a big house. Just because you have the means, it just doesn't make sense to keep the cost going up and waste when you don't need to. And we all do this. We all can cut down on things. And even someone as humble as Franklin to say that, that means a lot. He's saying, why is your hat, not big enough for 25 people? You have the means, right? You only have one hat on for one person. So it's like, why waste all your resources for nothing? So I like that. Let me just see what's more here. Boom. Here's another chapter called Reason, and it's on borrowing now. It talks about borrowing money. Think what you do when you run in debt, you give another power over your liberty. Rather go to bed supperless than rise in debt. The borrower is a slave to the lender and the debtor to the creditor. Creditors are a superstitious sect, great observers of set day and times. Creditors have better memories than debtors. Lying rides upon debt's back. That's funny. If you would know the value of money, go try to borrow some, for he that goes a-borrowing goes a-sorrowing. If you will not hear reason, she'll surely rap your knuckles. So Franklin is a big advocator on not being in debt. He hates debt with a passion. And you can see it here when he says, rather go to bed hungry than rise in debt. When you owe someone money, he's saying you give them your liberty, you give them your freedom. And you're a slave to them in a sense because you owe them money back. They're going to be watching you like a hawk. They have better memories than debtors, and lying rides upon debt's back. So you're going to end up lying a lot. They're going to be all over you, watching you, etc., 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 and you're going to be stuck. Okay, and that's the worst position to be in when you want to rise, having dead weights. Try having. It's like squatting. Or let's just use a better example, like a weighted vest. Walking around with a weighted vest is pretty much like walking around with debt. You're weighed down, you're not as free compared to everyone else who don't have a weighted vest, and it's just more difficult to move, especially uphill. When people's incomes are lessened, if they cannot proportionately lessen their outgoings, they must come to poverty. So pretty much if you can't live below your means, if you're spending more than you are receiving, if the proportions aren't right, then it's a quick way to go back to poverty. And this is some good advice. He talks about paying taxes. We're almost done here, so we almost got the book finished. The next chapter is on paying taxes. Franklin's approach to taxation is American, blah, blah, blah. So what I've noticed is a lot of people, especially in America, we talk a lot about taxes. We hate taxes. We wish we can get the tax rate lower, especially if you're in the upper bracket. Taxes are a big thing. But Franklin is a huge, he's kind of pro-tax. He's saying that, I'm gonna translate it in like my way of looking at it. He says, we all pretty much complain about taxes, but we are taxed twice as much by our laziness, 3 times as much by our pride, and 4 times as much by our folly. Folly is like irrational mistakes, like stupid decisions, like, buying something that you shouldn't need to, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Idleness taxes many of us more if we reckon all that is spent in absolute sloth. He's saying that, when we're lazy, the taxes are way more than whatever we're paying the government. And away then with your expensive follies, and you will not have so much cause to complain of hard times, heavy taxes, and chargeable families. Gain may be temporary and uncertain, but even while you live, expense is constant and certain. So Franklin is saying here that cognitive bias is an example of folly, like a heuristic. They're called heuristics in the human brain, and it's decisions we make that are irrational. If you read a book, Subliminal, I think, he talks about, the author, how we always think, like for example, there's many irrational decisions we make on a daily basis that we think are rational. Like most of us think we're good drivers, or we're good teachers, or we're friendly people, but when you do the studies, it's actually significantly low compared to whatever we think we are. We always put ourselves in higher regard, and we think the world revolves around us. Franklin's saying that being more aware of this is a lot less of a tax than the government's tax. So being more aware of just your own decisions and your own inaccuracies and your own irrational buying decisions, because buying is emotional, especially when it comes to money. This book's called The Way to Wealth. Remember, this is about money. Can definitely help you in terms of just like, instead of saying, hey, the taxes are too high, I hate the taxes, focus more on that, those types of decisions. So I like that a lot. Benjamin Franklin was a very rational human being. So let's see what more he talks about here. Still taxes stuff, still taxes. Wisdom. This one's great. This one's towards the end of his life. He's talking about retiring here. And he says here, a child and a fool imagine 20 years and 20 shillings can never be spent. So, even now, I'm in my 20s. My uncle, when you have someone who's older than you, when you spend time with older people, they're always saying, look, it's going to go by fast. But when we're young, we're thinking we're never going to be 30, we're never going to be 40. That's kind of a fool's way of thinking. It's the same thing with money. Franklin's saying, it's like you can't think that way. That's coming, trust me. Old age is coming, middle age is coming. You must be aware of this. And he says it here, and I like that. And he even goes a step further by saying, work while it is called today, for you know not how much you will be hindered tomorrow. Leisure is time for doing something useful. This leisure the diligent man will obtain, but the lazy man never. So leisure is doing something useful. Time to read a book, time to go on a vacation with your family, time to explore, go sightseeing. The person who works hard and smart will obtain that, but the person who's lazy will never obtain that. And that's very true. A plowman on his legs is higher than a gentleman on his knees. So work hard, again, that's what Franklin's saying. And that's pretty much the closing of the book. What do we have left here? Bequeathing. In death, there is no difference between dying worth a great sum and dying in debt for a great sum. So if you're a person worth $20 billion, $10 billion, Elon Musk, or you're a person with, owing $500 million in taxes, you're Jordan Belfort, you owe $100 million in taxes. Not in taxes, in debt, because, you did something that you shouldn't have done. There's no difference between the two people. He's saying that, when you die, you die. So, bequeathing here is kind of meant of, it's giving back. That's what it means. It's translated to giving back. And he's a big advocate for philanthropy and saying that you must give back the money you make, because at the end of the day, what does it really mean? And that's really why he's a very wise guy. So that's pretty much the sum of the book. Everything else is just more stories about his life and what he's done. Stories about his children and his wife and relatives. Declaration of Independence, things that he's done in terms of just philanthropy, giving back to Philadelphia, and actually for the United States of America. Okay, so that pretty much sums up Benjamin Franklin's Way to Wealth. Camera died, but we're doing just another conclusion based on the book. So pretty much the book, a penny saved is a penny earned. Saving money, bequeathing, giving money back, investing, knowing that more money begets more money, understanding that human follies are very important. Working hard is definitely important as well, and just understanding that you don't want to be in debt is pretty much a summation of this book, the summary of the book. So definitely one of my favorite books. I highly recommend this book. I pretty much gave you everything you need to know about this book. Any questions, just comment below or just reach out to us. But this is definitely one of the better books I've read, and definitely going to keep revisiting this as much as I can. Benjamin Franklin, The Way to Wealth.